everybody, welcome back. So today I want to talk to you about how do you unmask a narcissist, and what does that look like, and what is unmasking a narcissist. So in my experience, I was able to unmask my narcissistic mother and really see clearly who she was, what her intentions are, and to be able to better understand her behavior. So you can't unmask a narcissist, to them and have them reveal their true selves, because my last video talking about, can you reason with a narcissist? They're incapable of feeling empathy, and they always have a story or some kind of pre-programmed response to anything that sheds light on what they do, on their behavior. So unmasking a narcissist is really you unmasking the narcissist and beginning to understand and interpret their actions and their behaviors. Because one of the biggest weapons that narcissists have against you is twisting reality. And for me, my reality was completely twisted and upside down and jumbled. I was led to believe from the narcissist that, I'm not good enough. I need to change things about myself. I always need to compromise. There's this great debt that I owe the narcissist just for being alive. Just, things like that. And really none of that's true. And that's, when people affect your reality, so that's called gaslighting. That's a big thing with the narcissist, is they gaslight you, and it makes you confused, and you question your own behavior, and you question reality. So the way you can unmask the narcissist is you have to study human behavior, and you have to use it's personality disorders. I think that's what narcissism falls under, as far as for the scientific way to label these things. It's personality disorders, and you can start studying personality disorders to gain an understanding. Now, it's not I don't think it's the true definition of what a narcissist is. I think a narcissist, I know a narcissist, it's a much more diabolical, evil kind of behavior. A way to just label that so we can understand it is you can use, the scientific kind of labeling. Because if you've grown up in the West, where we have linear minds, the way we think is, the quickest way to get from point A to point B is a straight line. That's linear thinking. So in order for us to have understanding, because we've been programmed in this linear way, is we need labels and we need information. So that's a good part of this kind of scientific personality behavior approach. So you start studying personality disorders, and then you can see what the behavior is, and then you can see the patterns. That is the narcissist's Achilles heel, is everything repeats, and it's this pattern. And once you understand the behavior, that's how you unlock real control over the narcissist, because they just do what they know. They just do what they know works. And if what they're used to doing isn't working on somebody, they just pivot and go to somebody else. So in my case, my narcissistic mother, she's actually in collapse. And what happens when a narcissist goes into collapse, what that means is that they've lost all their supply. So when she was younger, she had a ton of supplies. She had me, my family, all these people around her. So she was raging. But then over time, as she's gotten older, she's alienated herself from everyone. And when I finally gained understanding and unmasked her as a narcissist and a diabolical person, she lost her largest source of energy, which was me. And now she's in full collapse. All she has now is my dad, which she kind of milks him. He's like her little blood boy. And then she has a few people, like she tries to get into, dramatic situations with like the neighbors and some of her friends, but she's pretty much, she's cut herself off from everyone. They've all completely abandoned her. So she's in collapse. So when a narcissist gets into collapse, their behavior becomes more erratic because they don't have their standard supplies, so they do crazy stuff. And, she's been trying to do her manipulative emotional behavior on my daughter, her granddaughter, who's 6 years old, which that's completely diabolical, but it hasn't worked. And I'm going to talk more about that, about how you can protect your children from a narcissistic grandparent. But anyway, really the whole thing about unmasking these people, it's for you. It's for you to be able to see clearly of these people's underlying intention. And like I said, the way I did it was I started studying personality disorders, which then led me to, narcissists and narcissism, and understanding the personality disorders within that kind of how they're organizing the behavior. But at the end of the day, I don't think a label is really appropriate. It really boils down to two things. And either the way somebody treats you is good and it feels good, or the way someone treats you is bad and it feels bad. And it's that simple. Either someone treats you good or they treat you bad. And if they treat you bad and they're not able to acknowledge the fact that, hey, I treated you bad, I wronged you, I hurt your feelings, that what I did affected you in a negative way. If they can't acknowledge that and then offer some kind of apology or that's what normal people do. Normal people make mistakes and then they own their mistakes and they apologize for them. And that's okay. It's okay to be mean to people and make a mistake and then apologize for it. The thing about the narcissist is they're never in the wrong. And that's what you have to understand, because you can never go to this person and expect any kind of apology or any kind of recognition of their behavior. You'll always just get a story or some kind of where they turn the tables, like that's what my narcissistic mother did. She turned the tables on me when I was trying to come to her, and I was telling her, all this mental, psychological abuse I experienced, it drove me to this dark place. And I understood, that's why I was drinking and driving and using drugs and depressed for so long. And I identified that as the root, and I was trying to bring that to her to have some reconciliation. And she said she's the victim in all of that. And so that that helped me to understand the intention behind the behavior. So just to wrap it up, unmasking the narcissist is giving you the ability to see what's really happening. And once you do that, you have really unmasked the narcissist, and you are not subject to their abuse, their continual abuse. And so that's what you got to shoot for, is that understanding. And look for resources. There's so many resources on the internet right now on the subject of narcissism, because it's so prevalent within society. I feel like the statistics of people that are doing this narcissistic behavior and narcissistic abuse on individuals, I think it's staggering. The number I heard was 1 in 4 people are a narcissist, but I think it's higher. I think it's like 50%, because narcissists are born every day, and the behavior continues and is only reinforced unless you call these people out. So that's the big thing. You got to gain understanding. look for these resources. Dr. Romani, she's a really good one on YouTube. I learned a lot from her. She's definitely from the Western medicine, psychology kind of point of view. There's some other people that really talk about the spiritual aspect of narcissism, and I think it's important to draw from both because, like I said, you can understand the behavior by studying the personality disorders, and then that's going to key you into a way to label what's happening and understand it more. But if you can start looking into a spiritual understanding of this, there's actually a bigger problem, and it's all throughout society right now, and it's really a problem with spirituality. People have lost a sense of spirituality within themselves, and so society's faced with this fallout of these terrible people and this terrible behavior that ultimately drives good people to a dark place. So you can search, it's kind of like demonic possession of narcissists, and that'll help you understand what's happening on a spiritual level. And in my opinion, after learning about all this, it's a war between good and evil. And these narcissistic people, they make a decision in their lives to invite the presence of evil into their life, and then they execute the will of this kind of evil presence in their life. And that's really what it is, because when I was bombarded by the narcissist for the majority of my life, it pushed me to a dark place. And then to try to seek understanding and just some relief of the pressure, it pushed me to do bad things. Treat people poorly, drink and drive, endangering people, and ultimately endangering my own life and not valuing life. This is really all we have. Because right now we're in this life we're living. You got to make the most of it, and understanding that on a spiritual level will help give you guidance. So unmasking the narcissist, that's how I did it, and I hope this gives you some information and just a direction to go. Okay, thanks for watching.